Oh yeah, spring football has officially started for Texas. It's time to see how the depth chart is shaping up early on. And there's some interesting changes and new blood making noise early. Our friend and owner of Inside Texas, Eric Nalin, is back to catch us up to speed on all the position battles. Inside Texas is offering an awesome deal where you get 4 months for just $1. Stay up to date on all that goes on throughout spring ball by signing up at InsideTexas.com today. And as always, don't forget to pick up your new hat for the new season from Last Stand Hats. Use promo code TexasHomer, all caps, for 10% off your purchase at laststandhats.com. It's been a long winter and it's time to get our football fix. Without further ado, let's get into it. Glad to have you back on, Eric. And let's kick it off with the offensive line. We originally thought Jones would be at left tackle, but there was a switch up on day one. So what's the update on the tackle spots?
Yeah, there was a bit of a change on left tackle with Andre Carrick working over there instead of Christian Jones. Last year, it was Christian Jones pretty much right out of the gates. Kyle Flood had identified through previous practice footage and game film that was his left tackle. This year, he's making the reverse change out of the gates as well. He has a lot more data on Christian Jones at this point. I think he sees him more as a right tackle. Andre probably has better feet than Christian. He's probably a little more disciplined. He's not quite as athletic and not nearly as long, but they're bringing some people that kind of fit those size requirements in the summertime. So Andre might be this might be his one time to truly shine because of Kelvin Banks coming in and some of the other guys.
Do you think it's a hint with Carrick now at left tackle that Kelvin Banks will come in and start?
We've been saying since Banks committed that, there's a good chance he's going to start as a freshman. That doesn't mean he's going to start right out of the gates. It's a hard position to play. There's a lot to learn. Not only are they usually technically deficient when they get to college, they don't know the playbook as well as they should. And that's a position where you can't afford to make mistakes, especially with, they're going to have an inexperienced quarterback either way you slice it. They're going to need some sort of understanding of how reliable that player is going to be. And so Andre Carrick might actually start some games. Who knows? Do you want to put Kelvin Banks out there against those freaks that Alabama has? We're not so sure. We'll let that play out. But Kelvin Banks, he's going to be starting at some point next year. I'm very confident about that. And he might not be the only one, but there's going to be a little more competition for the other players. Left tackle is just a big roster hole.
Interior offensive line seems more stable with Angelau, Majors, and Connor. Do you think we see a push from any of the incoming freshmen to land a starting spot there?
I think interior is going to go to script. The one thing that I was curious about was whether or not they were going to put Connor out at right tackle at all, and maybe they will. Practice just started. Last year, he played everything from left tackle to guard, both tackle spots. The guy could snap even if he had to. But if they're going to leave him at guard, then that to me means that the interior is set until the freshmen arrive. And I think it's probably going to be set well into next year. There's going to be a lot of competition for those guys. There's not a glaring weakness in the interior like there is on the outside. So even though they have really talented players coming in, Hayden Connor's good. He's got really good feet and he's giant. Fits what Kyle Flood's looking for. Angelo is extremely experienced, one of the strongest guys on the team. Jake Majors is the leader of that group. Nobody's going to supplant Jake Majors while he's still on campus. I'd be very shocked. It's kind of like Dom Espinoza back in the day. He's good. He's solid, pretty mobile, but really it's his leadership and that game understanding that he has that are going to make it really tough for him to be unseated.
Good stuff. And then we have some movement at tight end as well. Looking at the inline tight end specifically, Dractavian Sanders seems to be coming along. How is the battle between him and Gunnar Helm progressing?
I projected Gunnar Helm to be first team, but really it was a coin flip. All winter block I've been saying that Dractavian Sanders has been coming on, and him and Gunnar Helm are going to have a spirited competition. At some point, somebody's going to have to start, but both are going to play. They both have different strengths within that same position. They're playing inline. Dractavian's going to be a better receiving threat. He's a fantastic receiver. I mean, he's got he might have the best hands on the team. Either him or Juan Davis might have the best hands on the team. As long as he's a serviceable blocker, then you can really take advantage of his receiving abilities. Helm is going to be a more physical blocker. He's stronger at the point of attack, but he's also a pretty good receiver himself. So, they're both going to play. This was kind of a foregone conclusion. Once Jared Wiley departed, you knew that they really liked the guys that they had. They're both talented. They just lack experience. So they're talented. That doesn't mean they're going to be good the first game, but it means they're going to be good eventually.
And then at Y tight end, the more receiving focused tight ends, Jaleel Billingsley was lower on the depth chart. So what's the word there? Is Sark just making new guys kind of earn their spot?
Billingsley's a little down the depth chart, but that's meaningless at this point. First of all, it's not even, there's the inline guys are separate from the flexed out guys, the H-backs, or actually they're a Y, but what are commonly known as an H-back. What Connor Brewer had played in the past and what Andrew Beck had played. Billingsley brings an entirely different athletic dimension that they've had at that position in a long time. Now, there's probably going to be times they do line him up in line to catch defensive sleeping, but he's only 215 pounds. You don't necessarily want him blocking defensive ends or even on combo blocks. So he's going to move around, use angles to his advantage. He'll be be a worthwhile blocker, but really it's the value add for him is receiving vertical threat, finding open space, far down the field. He's not running just short drags. He's going to be fine. Juan Davis will have the same exact fit. They're basically big wide receivers, big slot wide receivers masquerading as tight ends, essentially.
That segues us well into receivers. Sark breaks them up by outside and inside guys. And interestingly, Nair was third on the depth chart. So who is starting at those spots currently?
Of course, Xavier Worthy's out there with the ones, and Jordan Whittington as well. That's not going to change. Marcus Washington was out there as well. He's experienced, obviously, played a lot of football last year. Isaiah Nair, a lot of people are asking about him. It's just first practice. Same thing that we said about Billingsley goes for him. He's got to earn it. Coaches will lose their players real quick if they just start gifting positions that people have worked hard for a long time to some new guy. Imagine if that happened to you at work. So Nair's going to have to earn it, but of course he will earn it. We already heard good things about him in workouts, but we're hearing really good things about him just from the first practice as well, about his overall ability to run the route tree. I think he has a bit of a reputation because of his stat line at Wyoming to be more of a vertical threat, but he's proven to be somebody that can run the entire route tree. And that's really going to put cornerbacks on their heels, and then he'll go over the top.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Nair wasn't starting game one. And then we have two receivers still out in Troy Amiri and Jaden Alexis. So what are the timelines for both of those guys returning to the field?
I expect Amiri and Alexis to be full speed for August, but they're not there yet. Sark said they're not going to be participants in spring. I think they'll be out there catching balls, wearing helmets and that sort of thing, but they're not going to see any contact. And same with Braden Liebrock, who we could have mentioned during tight ends. There's no point in trying to rush them back. They were running with the team during the team runs, those videos that everybody sees on social media where the guys are out there working out. They were out there doing that stuff too. But judging by their times and the fact that they're being held out, they're not full speed, but they're getting back. It's a process. It's a lengthy process. Troy's already done this twice. This is his second time now. I will say Jaden Alexis going through this process has been wonders for Troy, keeping him motivated. It's really hard to do it again. And so I think Alexis has been really good. And, we'll see what they bring. But Alexis needs to come back. Obviously, they're really thin behind Whittington at slot receiver, at least until Brennan Thompson gets to campus.
Yeah, it'll really help out depth if we can get both those guys back. And the running back depth chart is what we expected, right? No weird shakeups there.
Running back is exactly how you would think. It's Bijan, Roschon, Keelan Robinson, Jonathan Brooks, and then Jaden Blue, the freshman. And so it's going to, that one's going to script. It will play out like that, barring injury. They've got a nice little versatile group, plenty of speed, plenty of everything with Bijan. You got leadership with both Bijan and Roschon, versatility with Keelan Robinson. So the one thing I'm really looking for at this position is if they get a little more dynamic with Keelan Robinson. I suspect we'll start hearing more about him in the screen game and maybe motioning around more.
Running back room is crazy. And then the much anticipated quarterback battle. Who got the starting reps? And then how did both Card and Ewer perform on day one?
Going into camp, obviously Hudson Card's going to be the first guy to take reps. Stood by the team all last year. Some guys might have considered transferring. He didn't do that. He stayed to compete. And so, he's running with the ones. And of course, he finds himself in a full competition with Quinn Ewers. The one thing that's interesting here is Quinn Ewers is going to have a talent gap over pretty much everybody just from his ability to throw it. But not that steep between him and Card. Card can throw it too. Card's got an elite arm. So it's going to come down to who makes better decisions, quicker decisions, and who protects the football. Card looked way more comfortable per multiple sources in the first practice, looked way more confident, was trusting his receivers more, letting the ball rip. That did lead to one interception, but, interceptions are going to happen. And then, what we heard about Quinn is that, he's not quite as comfortable as Hudson, but it looks like he's been there a lot longer than a couple months. I think he benefited quite a bit from those unofficial workouts with the wide receivers that they were getting in. It remains to be seen how well he processes, how quickly he makes decisions on which receiver to target. I'm confident that he's going to do well in both aspects, but we need to see more of it. The one thing that really checks out is that arm strength we were just talking about.
What's the update on Malik Murphy's injury? Is he still in the boot?
Yeah, Malik Murphy's not going to participate in the spring. Sark said as much. He had been in a boot pretty much since he arrived. We never really got great intel on that. A lot of times, they put guys in boots for precaution. It turns out that he was on a little longer rehab than we knew about. It's unfortunate because you want to get him developing as quick as possible. But, I'm sure Sark's going to be giving him a whole lot of mental reps to go through. And since he's out, there's going to be a really good competition for that third quarterback spot. He needs to get back if he wants to be that third guy. He's going to have to come back healthy and kind of expedite that learning curve. But it's just a minor setback on a guy who's going to have to wait his time anyways.
And that's all the offense. So let's go over to defense. And we have a couple battles for our interior defensive line. At nose, how is the lineup looking between Keandre Coburn, Byron Murphy, and Tavondre Sweat?
Nose tackle is going to be interesting because you have Coburn, the veteran, Byron Murphy, the upstart, and then T'Vondre Sweat, who might be the most physically gifted out of all of them. Maybe any defensive lineman in the program, really, because at his size, he's actually a really quality pass rusher, and he's losing weight and probably in the best shape since he's put on that weight upon arrival. He came in at only like 275 pounds, so he's put on a lot of weight. He's carrying it better than he has in the past. It's going to be motor with him. Coburn's going to be the guy that goes out there and starts, in quotation marks. But Byron Murphy's going to play a ton, almost starter snaps, I would guess. And T'Vondre Sweat's going to play a lot as well. I'm looking more to see if they move those guys around a little bit. Byron Murphy can play both defensive tackle and nose tackle. And T'Vondre Sweat is probably the guy that you want out there in the one technique or nose tackle, depending on what front they're in, on 3rd and 15. And him and Alfred Collins, that's a lot of size up front, a lot of length up front. So we'll see how it goes. All three of those guys are going to play a lot. I don't care much who the anointed starter is. It's just a matter of, are they getting better? We're going to learn more about usage. Let those guys need to be able to pin their ears back and attack more than they did last year.
Then at defensive tackle, we have Mora Ojimo and Alfred Collins, who moved inside from defensive end. So how are both those guys looking early?
Ojimo is similar to Coburn in that, he's probably going to be the guy that starts. He's reliable. You know what you're going to get from him. When you call a defense, you're going to get predictable outcomes from what he provides. Alfred Collins, of course, I just said T'Vondre Sweat has maybe the most talent on the defensive line. It's really actually Alfred Collins. And, we'll talk about Bledsoe here in a minute. But those are the three guys that are, NFL prototypes. Collins, he just offers so much upside as far as his ability to get in the backfield and play quick and play with length. His problem is he has to play more gap sound and with more awareness. Sometimes he loses track of where he's supposed to be. So if he becomes more assignment sound, he's going to be out on the field even more. But, it's good to see him back to where he is. You want guys playing in the position that they're going to be in when they're in the NFL. And that's what's going to happen with Alfred Collins.
Yeah, I hope Collins can, arrive this season. And moving outside to the edge, what's the jack position depth chart looking like right now?
Jack is going to be the lunch pail group. They're going to have to be stout versus the run. They're going to have to get some pass rush too. But really, you just want them setting a hard edge. And that's going to be Barron Sorrell. He's bigger and stronger. You got Justice Finkley, also a lunch pail guy. Jordan Thomas has good size, plays with motor. Obviously, he missed a year, so he's got some acclimating to do to the program and getting back into the sport after taking time off. It's hard to get back into it. And then, of course, Jere Bledsoe is there. We kind of opined once we realized what Kwiatkowski was looking for at that jack position that he would start his career at edge, and that's what's happening. I still think he's probably going to grow into a 3-tech long term. He's going to look a lot different in 2 years. But for now, they're really trying to set a hard edge and make up for those inefficiencies they had last year, especially after Jacoby Jones got hurt.
Yeah, we need defensive ends to step up this year. And then we have the pass rushing focus Buck position on the other end, and that's a hodgepodge right now as well. What's the depth chart looking like?
Buck probably has the biggest question marks on defense. I think I feel even better about linebacker than Buck right now. Ovie Oghoufo is going to be the number one guy, probably be your starter next year, barring somebody coming into the portal. And then behind him, you have Jet Bush. And I can hear the fans groan from here. But Jet Bush was playing way out of position last year. You have to understand that before you criticize him. If he's playing. Look what I just said about the players setting a hard edge, having size, guys that are going to spin inside. Jordan Thomas is going to spin inside. Bledsoe's going to spin inside eventually. And we had a guy whose best position was linebacker. So, that tells you how much he was out of position and taking one for the team. Bucky's much more comfortable. Size-wise, he fits the specs better. They're going to be asked to drop quite a bit, and he's athletic in his drops. Plays with a lot of motor. It's going to be about discipline, playing the run with discipline, playing the run with the right shoulder. For Oghoufo, it's going to be about not getting too far upfield and giving up free yards to the quarterback. That was very frustrating. It's been a long time since we saw edge defenders consistently set the edge, other than maybe Joseph Osai.
And do you have any update on Shawn Matthews?
Shawn Matthews, I don't have an update on him. Obviously, I think my first update is the only one that matters, and that was that Texas was in a great spot, and I really haven't heard anything new about that. I am going to check on that. In the coming weeks, I've got a way I can run a check on that. So I do want to make sure that train is still on the tracks because recruiting is weird, but still feel good on that.
Cool. And linebacker also needs to take a big leap this year. Who are the starting middle and weak side linebackers at the moment?
Jalen Ford and DeMarvion Overshown are very likely going to be the two that start, whether it's tomorrow or August or September. I don't see that changing. Jalen Ford is looking the best he's looked, but I want to hear, first practice doesn't really matter. First practice matters more to me how the wide receivers and DBs look, because that's coverage based and physicality doesn't matter quite as much. And then, linebackers, how he's fitting the run, it's really hard to tell, or, even when you get word of mouth from these practices. But Ford is going to be good, I think, at least average. If they can get average, it'll be better than last year. And then DeMarvion, I'm not negative on him or pessimistic. I'm glad to see see him putting on some good size, finally looking like a linebacker. A little size in his neck is good to see. But still, is he going to play the run the right way? You can't cheat the run game unless you really know what you're doing, unless you're entirely instinctive. And I don't think he's really shown that. So, hopefully he gets help from more help from the defensive front this year than he got last year, and then he can clean up. Jalen Ford is going to be pretty good, I think. Not great. And then behind Overshown, you have Benda. He's got a chance to make a big jump. Probably fits the script, what they're looking for a little bit more than Overshown. Overshown's just the best option right now. Devin Richardson, I'm curious to hear things about him. He's big. He's fast in a straight line. He's got some experience playing, at least on a college level, playing that position. And then Jaden Holliby, he had a pick yesterday, and that pick occurred while he was running with the ones, which was a bit surprising to hear too. Obviously that just tells you they're rotating a lot, but it was good to hear his name mentioned. He's athletic for sure. I'm not sure, about the linebacker is such a cerebral position. It's hard to glean anything from an interception, if a one-off, Obviously, Luke Brockermeyer had like 10 picks last year in practice, and it didn't necessarily materialize.
Are we still looking to snag a linebacker post-spring?
They'll definitely look to take a linebacker out of the portal if one becomes available. That's the big need, linebacker. I think they would take a buck as well, and then obviously a boundary safety or anybody who improves the overall secondary, because they have a lot of versatility in secondary. So those are three positions: a safety or defensive back of some sort, a linebacker, and then a buck. But they would also look at best player available. The roster has a lot of questions, so if somebody enhances a position, they'll be proactive.
Only time will tell, Eric. And then we also have shakeup at nickel. So what was the movement that went on there?
Jahdae Barron had a few snaps with the corners, with the first team corners when they first rolled out. That tells me that they were probably in base, him and Jamison. But then he quickly moved over to nickel, and he's competing with Jaron Thompson there. So that's going to be interesting. I think that in an effort to get more pass rush, they're going to want to run more man coverage. And if you're going to run more man coverage, you're going to want to use the guys with the most corner traits. And Jahdae Barron, there's no really reason to move him from corner other than they're deep there, and they added Ryan Watts. Otherwise, he'd be your starting corner. So between the two corners and nickel, they should have excellent coverage, which should allow them to bring a little bit extra pressure.
And for our starting corners, is it Ryan Watts at boundary and Deshaun Jameson to the field?
They're not really playing boundary field this year. It's right, left. They're drilling both guys on either side. I think it might matter. I think they want comfort depending on who the matchup is, who the most dangerous receiver is. So I think they're just going to prepare for anything in that regard. Watts looked sensational in the first practice. People are always taken aback by his size, but really, his speed and movement skills are really good for that size. That's what gives him a chance to be really good. I don't want to, I haven't seen him with my own eyes in a while, but I remember seeing him in 7-on-7 and not being a believer at first, and then seeing him out there running and changing my mind really quickly. And I think that's happening with a lot of people at Texas right now. So he was locking up everybody in the first practice. Obviously, you don't want to take that and run with it forever, but we'll keep checking on him. That's one of the big storylines I'm chasing all throughout spring, is him going against Isaiah Nair and Worthy. If he does well versus them, then he's more of a known quantity, especially after flashing so much at Ohio State. And then the other side is Deshaun Jameson. He's going to start, but to me, I'm curious about how much Terence Brooks plays. Maybe some of the other corners will get a look too. Brooks, kind of like we talked about with Kelvin Banks, didn't come to Texas to sit his first year. Last year we saw them rotate corners quite a bit. That's why Jahdae Barron played corner a lot last year, despite having Josh Thompson and Jameson, and Darian Dunn played a lot as well. Get excited about a healthy dose of Terence Brooks, and he had a really good first practice too.
I'm excited for Brooks, man. And safety is getting tinkered with as well. So who was the starting boundary and field safety day one?
The move of Jahdae Barron over to nickel and Jaron Thompson getting looks there freed up Anthony Cook to move to boundary safety. You want more of a presence there, more of a physical presence there. Think Deshaun Elliott. This defense would look a lot different with that guy in his junior year coming back. Cook has a lot of heart. He is tough. He's physical. He just some of it's more physical intent than has actual physicality. He wants to be physical. He wants to come down and hit you. So we'll see. He can do it. He can do it mentally, and he's going to be exceptional in coverage for that position. But I do have concerns, especially, given last year's issues with defending the run at all three levels, how good he is in that regard. But he's going to give it all he has for sure. And I think he's at least going to be serviceable. But, I liked seeing him at nickel last year. But, Jahdae Barron's, you can't keep him off the field either. So there's always attention of the guys that need to be on the field. Now it's how do you make it fit? So the best way to make that fit right now is to have Anthony Cook at boundary. Field safety is going to probably be Jaron Thompson versus JD Coffey. I think it's nice that Thompson's getting some cross training in case something does happen with Barron, but I expect Barron to win that job. And I really think Jaron Thompson's going to win in field safety over Coffey, but Coffey's showing a lot of promise. They really like him. He's one of those guys that actually, you know, he's not the biggest, but he punches above his weight. I'm sure you saw his high school film, just annihilating guys coming downhill. And I think he recognizes the run and takes good angles in the run game as well. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think Jaron Thompson has a little bit more experience, and I think that's going to translate into better communication in the back end, and communication is a very big deal. But overall, the secondary should be good in coverage. I do question the run, playing the run, especially after what we saw last year.
You're awesome, man. Thank you for coming by and breaking down how things are looking at each spot. And I always learn a ton whenever you come on. So please tell the viewers how to find even more behind the scenes information.
Yeah, come over to Inside Texas. You know, we've got a killer crew over there. We have a lot of bodies, but a lot of production. There's a lot of articles every day. Putting out about 60, 70 articles a week. You know, Bobby Burton is a legend in this business. Jerry Hamilton's been around forever. Covers recruiting. I've never seen anybody work as hard in recruiting as Jerry. Paul Wadlington's the best writer on the Texas internet, one of the best writers on the internet, period. Ian Boyd is the best at breaking down X's and O's. Joe Cook is a stellar beat writer. Myself and Justin Wells, we have dual roles of covering recruiting and the team. We hit that really hard. And right now it's $1 for 4 months for $1. And then if you don't like it, you know, tell all your Sooner friends about it. But if you do like it, tell your Texas friends.
And that's a wrap on Eric Nahlin, owner of Inside Texas. Make sure to go subscribe over on InsideTexas.com. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, hook 'em.